you guys got you can watch the video, those who are late. So they got 3 homework due tonight, 2/5 to 2/7. Your midterm test is next Tuesday, on the 28th. You'll be at noon, and then it will cover chapter 2 and chapter 3. So today we will talk about chapter 3.1 and 3.2, and then Thursday we'll do 3.3 and 3.4. So chapter 3 have 4 sections, and then you will have a test next Tuesday. You got 24 hours to do your tests. So make sure that that means it will be due on, so the test date will be due on Wednesday the 29th at noon. And yes, if you give me like 12:05 or 12:30, 12:15, I'm okay with it. But after past 1 o'clock, then it'll be something that I would need to fix. Then it's no good. So make sure you guys take the test usually around roughly runs around like 14-15 questions. Okay, and I will tell you where to study for your tests. Okay, because there's a reading material. So first thing I want to point out to you is where do you get the test? Share screen there. So first thing first is your test will be posted in D2L under announcement. So on Tuesday, not tomorrow, the following Tuesday, at noon or 11:30, you will get the announcement posted over here saying that it's your midterm test, or you can get the test in your college email. I will send it to your college email, so you can do the test. You can get it from there, or it's under material and content. There is also tests over here. So this is where you get your. I'll put a folder called test. So there are 3 ways for you guys to get where the test is located at. So one is in the under D2L. Same thing with the midterm. Same thing with your finals under announcement. Second is your school email. I'll send it to you. And third is under material. You will get the test there. How do you do your test? Your test comes with a PDF file. So how do you do your test? Either one, you print out the test and do it. Otherwise, you don't want to print it out, you can write it on paper. Okay, you can write on the papers plural, and then write your name, write the question, make sure it's organized and stuff like that, and then do your test. You got 24 hours to do it, and then once you finish your test, you scan it using your cam scanner or scanning any scanning device or scanning apps you have on your phone, and then send it to me through my email address. So do not go under assessment and drop it in D2L. So you don't drop your test in D2L, you email the test to me. And once you email the test to me, make sure you have like a few minutes for it to upload to the attachment, and then send an email. So once you send me an email to me, I will reply back with the email back to you. Okay, so make sure you send it to me, and then I will reply the email back to you saying to confirm that I got your test. Sometimes the test that you got is not even finished, or it's not missing, or something happens to the attachment. So at least with that, I can figure out what's going on. So I can send you an email back saying that, you know what, you are missing some pages here or missing some questions here. So make sure you get a confirmation from me first before you end up saying, okay, this is good. And you can only submit your test one time. What do I mean by that is that, so when you finish scanning this and you send it to me and then suddenly you find out that question 5 is wrong, and say, hey, David, question 5 is wrong, let me resend that to you. My answer to you is no, I won't take that. So once you send me your test to me, when you submit the test to me, that is the final. So it means that you cannot resubmit again, or you cannot redo. Oh, you know what? This question is wrong. Can I redo it? The answer is no. So, so make sure that you guys send it to me, and that's the final piece. How many questions? Around 14, 15 questions. It will take you around an hour and a half, 2 hours max to do it, but you got 24 hours to do your test. So some students ask me, where should I study the test? I will tell you the textbook. So if you go to the textbook, the ebook or the textbook, doesn't matter where it is. So if you go to the textbook, this is the textbook, you go under the chapter 2 and chapter 3 test. At the end of chapter 2 and chapter 3, there is a test. So you go to like here, this is a chapter 2. And then you go to the very last, oops, this is something I opened. You go to the very last one called chapter test, and you click on it. And this is the kind of the test, but this is just for chapter 2. So then you just click down here. This is your answer. So they have answers. So so that's the reason why that. So this is chapter 2. Again, this is a lot of questions. I mean, again, I only give you 14, 15 questions. So this is chapter 2, and then after that, you go to chapter 3 test.
So is that like a review for the test?
Yeah, this is review for your test.
Okay.
So for your midterm, for your Tuesday test, so chapter 2, go all the way down to chapter test, and then same thing happens to chapter 3. Where was the? Maybe it's over here. Yep. So you can go to chapter 3, and then you do the same thing. Go underneath, go all the way down to the test. Chapter 3, and then you go all the way to the test, and then you click chapter test, and then that's where your chapter test is. So I would recommend for you guys who want to review for your midterms, go to the chapter test 2 and 3. It looks very similar. Your test looks very similar to this one. The question, not exactly the same question, but different questions. But it's not as many questions as this. There's a lot of questions here, right? So not as many questions as this. Same thing happens when you do when you want to review for your finals, which is chapter 4 and chapter 5. You just go to chapter 4 and chapter 5 and do the chapter test for your review. Yep, this is for the review for your test here. So everyone got what I'm talking about here regarding with your chapter test reviews. So just go to your chapter test review in your textbook. You will get it there. Anyone have any questions with your tests? All right, next I'm going to talk about is homework questions. So anyone have any homework questions for me? I have a few homework questions that some students need help. Where was that? Yeah, if you have homework questions, let me know because I will do it together. So one of the homework questions is like question 11 here. Question 11D, a lot of students doesn't know how to write this function as a g of x. So like example, in this case, I'm going to do 2.5 question 11 here. They give us gx is negative 2x squared plus 1. This is a gx thing. Question D is asking us to write this function in terms of f. So what is actually question D you want us to do for mostly this 2.5 is change this x squared to become f of x. That's what you do. So what is the answer in this case is g of x is equals to negative 2.
What question are you on?
I'm sorry?
What question were you on?
Question 11, 2.5.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
D, right here. Question 2.5, question 11, part D. So they want you to write this in the form of f term. So what you do is you take this and then substitute that to f of x. And then you rewrite, you interchange it. So in this case, you write the plus 1 first, minus 2 f of x. So this is how you do question D. Is usually you interchange this into f of x. And then this is where you put your 1, and then you put your 2 in here. If this one have x plus 2 squared, something like this, then what happened is that your f of x here will be fx plus 2. So whatever inside here will be changed to x plus 2 in this case. So this is how you write f of x in your g of x in terms of f in 2.5. Question 10, question 11, question 12, the part D always asks you this. to write this in terms of f of x. Some students ask me, is this going to come up in the test? My answer is no. You will get A, B, C only. That means you write I want you to identify the parent function, the transformation, and sketch the graph, but I will not ask in the test, write G in terms of f. Okay, so that I won't ask in the test. Okay, I got some questions here. Let me see what questions you guys have. How many questions are on the actual test? I haven't set the test yet. I already told you it's around 14, 15, 16 questions. I haven't set the test. I will do it. I will not 40, 50, 14, 15, not 40, 50. No, it's 14 to 16 questions. I haven't set the test yet. No, if I give you 40 to 50, I will wait till the next year. Okay. So it's 14 to 16 questions. I haven't set the test yet. So it's going to be around that. Okay. So it take you around an hour and a half to 2 hours to do it. Not 40, 50, 14 to 16 questions. All right. Anyone have any questions for me? Because 2.5 to 2.7 is due on tonight. I'm doing this 2.5 question 11 that someone have, and then I will go to 3.1 after that. Anyone have any questions for me before we start with today's class on 3.1 here? Okay, if you do, stay after class and we'll talk about it. So, so what we're going to talk about in chapter 3 here is the first thing in chapter 3 is about circles. So this is kind of like a basic circle stuff. So circles equations consist of a lot of equations, but these equations is what we call as the main equation. So this is the main equation in this case. This is the equation of a circle given us that x minus h squared minus y minus k squared equals to r squared, where hk is the center of the circle and the r is the radius of the circle. So this is the equation of a circle. If your center is at the origin 0, 0, then it will be x squared plus y squared equals to r squared, means your hk is 0, 0. I just want to point out to you that when you guys look at this, the sign inside here is negative. So when I give you x plus 2 squared plus, it's a plus, y minus 4 squared equals to 9. Can someone tell me what is the center of this circle? If I give you x plus 2 squared plus, it's a circle because it's square. How do we know it's circle? Because there's square on the x, y squared, and the plus. This is a circle. So does anyone know how to find the center of this circle? What's the coordinates of this center of the circle? Anyone? Forget the sign is switched around here. Anyone know what's the center of this circle?
Is it the origin? 0, 0?
No, not origin, because you have, this is your h, this is your k, this is the circle, center. Without this number, then it's origin. But that's why if I give you x squared plus y squared equals to 9, then yes, then your center of the circle is origin. Because there's no hk here, but now we have hk. So what is the coordinates of this center? So look at this, h and k, that is your center. So h in this case is what?
2.
Not 2. That's the one that a lot of students make mistakes, not 2. Why not 2?
Because of the square root.
Because of what?
The square root outside it.
No. Because of a sign. So if you look at the formula, this sign is a negative. This is a positive. So this is not 2. This is supposed to be what?
-2.
Negative 2. And what is your k in this case?
4.
4, because it's the same sign. So it's 4. So sometimes I tell students that if you want to know the center of a circle, you just take the number and do the opposite. Opposite means plus become minus, minus become plus. Okay, so that is the center. What is the radius for this case? You know what's the radius for this case?
9.
Not 9. See, that is another mistake students likes to do is they say 9 and 9 is not correct. Anyone know? Yes, the center of radius here, the radius center. The radius in this case is 3 because you do need to take the square root of it. Okay, so that's the reason why that make sure you guys, because if you look at the question here, it's r squared. You see the r squared here? So that's the reason why that your radius has to be squared, become 3 here. So what happens when you have a radius is 1 and the center is at origin? Then we call this as a unit circle. It's x squared plus y squared equals to 1. So if you have that, it means that if you draw a, so if you want to draw this kind of circles, sorry, it's weird. So if you have negative 2, 4, so you go negative 2 here and then you go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the center of the circle and the radius is 3. So you go 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and then you draw yourself a circle here. I know it's very sloppy. Oh, sorry, supposed to go up like that. Sorry about that. So the radius here is supposed to be what? 3. It's hard to draw. Trust me, it's with my mouse. So this is how you draw a circle if you have a negative 2, 4 as a center and your radius is 3. You go up 3, up, down, left, right, 3, and then you draw a circle. What happens when you have what we call as a unit circle? A unit circle means that you will have the center is at origin and the radius is all 1. So this is what we call as the unit circle, where the center is at origin and the radius is 1 in this case. So this is the formula for unit circle, x squared plus y squared equals to 1. So these two formula come from the main formula where your hk is 0 and your r is 1. That's why you get this formula. And then this is what we call as the standard form of a circle. And then we have what we call as a general form of a circle. A general form of a circle is you take this and you FOIL it out. So if you take x minus h squared, FOIL it out, and then you take y minus k squared and FOIL it out, and move the r over there, you get yourself this equation. And this equation is called the general form. So example is this follows. If you see at question 2 here, this is what we call as a general form because it's no longer factor. This question 1 is called as a general form, as a standard form because it's a root factor for us. So which one is better? Definitely the factor form is better because you can tell the center straight away and you can tell the radius here. So can someone tell me, looking at question 1, what is the center and what is the radius in this case? Anyone know what's the center and radius for this case? For question 1.
2 and negative 3 is the center.
The center is what? I cannot.
Positive 2 and negative 3.
Very good. 2, 3, 2, negative 3. And what is your radius here? Anyone? Radius? Last time 9, I take a square root, become 3, right? So what is the square root of 16 over 9? Square root of 16 is what? And what is square root of 9?
3.
So it's 4/3, right? It's 4 over 3. So, and then what you do is you just graph 2, negative 3. 2, negative 3 is down here. So that is your center. And then 4/3, if you use your calculator, this is 1.33333. So you just do 1.333, 1.333, and then 1.333, and then 1.33, and then you draw the circle for it. You guys okay how to do this? It's very straightforward, very easy. Okay. However, if I give you a general form like this, in order for you to change this general form to this standard form so you can tell the center and the radius straight away, you have to perform what we call as completing the step, completing the square. And how do you do completing the square? These are the 4 steps you do. And guess what? Later on in 3.1, when you do the your quadratic formula, you have to know how to do this. So first thing is you have to group the x and y terms together and put the constant term on the right side. So what I mean here is before you do this, okay, yeah. So group them up. So here you have to group your x terms. So I group 2x squared minus 12x. So this is 1. I group my x terms here. And then plus 2y. I don't have room. It should continue here. I don't have room to write. So 2y squared plus 8y. And this is all equals to 24. So this is what is the first step you need to do here is group your x term, your y term, and your number. You move it to the other side. And then if since all these have a leading coefficient, the leading coefficient here is 2, 2, you have to divide them out. So in this case, this all can be divided by 2, kind of reducing it. So this 2 will become 1. This 12 will become 6. So I can erase this. So this is no longer, because when you divide by 2, that's become 1. This 12 will become 6. This 2 is no longer. This 8 will become 4, because when you divide by 2, it becomes 4. And then this 24 will become 12. So what you do here is, oh, sorry. This is what happens when you, so this will become 12. So what you do next in this case is, you have to, so this is what I did here is dividing, so it become 1. So usually when we factor up, sometimes we factor, sometimes we divide. Okay, sometimes we divide. And then after that, you take the middle term, in this case is 6 for x term, and you divide this by 2 and you square it. So you take the middle term, you divide by 2 and you square it, and then you add it to both sides of the equation. So what you do next here is you take the negative 6, divide by 2, and you square it. This is what we call as completing the square. So this will give me 9, because negative 6 divided by 2 is 3, squared become 9. So what do I do here is I will add 9 here. And don't forget, this is like an equation. If you add 9 on one side, you also have to add 9 on the other side of the equation. And you also have to do the same thing on the 4, because that's the y term. So you divide by 2 and you square it. So this is 4. 2 squared is 4. So you need to add 4 here. And you need to add 4 here. So this is what we did quite step 3. This is what we call as completing the square. And then this trinomial, step 4, this trinomial can be factored, and the factor will look like this, x minus 2 squared. So when you factor this, this will become x minus 3 squared. So how do I get this negative 3 is half of this negative 6, or square root of 9, one of those. And then for the denominator, for the y term is y plus 2 squared. And how do I get positive 2? I take the middle term and divide it by 2. Positive 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then you add all this up. 12 plus 9 plus 4, which is 25. So now what happened is your general form become a standard form. And with this standard form, you can tell me the center and the radius like what we just did just now. So this is mostly, this is very tough because you have to do the general form is you have to completing the square. This is a tough part in this case. But once you get into the standard form, then it's easy for you to tell me the center and the radius and then graphing it. Okay, so make sure you guys know the difference between those two. Okay, question 3 and 4 is asking us to write this in a standard form of equation. So standard form means is number 1. So you do not need to FOIL or do anything. So since they give you this center and the radius, so you can go ahead and give me the equation. So again, make sure you flip-flop your sign for center. So positive 1 become negative 1. And then y, in this case, negative 3 become positive 3. And then do not forget to square your radius. So once you square the radius, the square and square root will cancel. This will become 11. So this is very easy, number 3. However, for number 4, this is a bit tough because they give you the diameter of a circle. So if you have a circle, if the diameter means is one end to another end, this is called a diameter. and you always cut through the center of the circle. So in order for you to find the center of the circle, this is what question 4. So to find the center of a circle, this is what we call as your midpoint. So how do you find the midpoint? Is like middle. You add your x-axis and you divide it by 2. So you take 3 minus 9 divided by 2. And then you take 2 minus 8 divided by 2. So what you have in this case is 3 minus 9 divided by 2 is a negative 6 divided by 2, negative 3. And then 2 minus, that 2 minus 8 is also negative 6. And when you divide by 2 is negative 3. So this is the center of your circle, which is negative 3, negative 3. Now we need radius. Once you know center and radius, then boom, you get your answer here. So in order for you to find the radius of a circle, what you do in this case is you have to do the distance formula. So this whole thing is called diameter. So if you find the distance formula and then you divide this by 2, then you get yourself the radius. So first thing first is I find the diameter first. So how do you find your diameter? Is you subtract this and square it. So I take 3, subtract by negative 9, the x terms. But 2 negative become positive, and I square it. Plus, and then you take 2, subtract by negative 8. So again, 2 negative become positive, and you square it. So you subtract this square, subtract that and square, and then 3 plus 9 is 12. 12 square is 144. 2 plus 8 is 10. 10 square is 100. And then add this one up. So your diameter in this case is 244. Okay. So in order for us to find the radius, you just divide this by 2. So this is your radius in this case. Just leave it like that and I'll show you what to do next. So now I got center. I got the radius like what we did in question 3. So I put this in the equation of this using him. So we'll do x and then the negative 3 become plus 3. And then you square it. And then your y also plus 3 and you square it because they're all negative 3. Now the radius turn. So what you do with radius, last time I square it, right? So this time I also square this because your formula asks for radius square. So when you square this, the square root and square will cancel. You get 244. And then 2 square is 4. So now you just need to divide 244 over 4. What's 61? So you get 61 here. So this is your equations of the circles in this case. X plus 3 square, y plus 3, these are 3, sorry. These are all 3. And equals to 61. And how I get 61 is 244 divided by 4 is 61. And this is the equation of this if I give you the diameter. Okay, so this is just circle. This is kind of like not 3.1, it's kind of like sub of 3.1. So now we're going to talk about really 3.1, the quadratic type. So anyone have any questions with the circle piece before I continue with the quadratic equations? Anyone have any questions? Right, so quadratic equations is where you will have ax squared plus bx plus c. This is what we call as a quadratic function because of f of x. The graph of the quadratic function is a parabola, which everyone here know what it looks like. It looks like a U shape, right? Parabola. So this parabola have what we call as an axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry is where you cut the parabola by 2. So we have a parabola. So this line that cut it by 2 is called the axis of symmetry. Okay, and the one underneath here, the one this point underneath here is called the vertex. Okay, that's why it's hard to So this point is called a vertex. This is called a vertex. And this is going open upward. This will open upward. The reason why is because it's going upward. And when everything open upward, your leading coefficient is positive. So when you have an open upward, your leading coefficient is positive. What is the leading coefficient? The leading coefficient is A, this A. So if your A is positive 3 or positive 2 or positive any numbers, we know that your parabola is open upwards. Okay, and this point is called the minimum point in this case because it's at the lowest point. So it's called a minimum point. Okay. We also can have a parabola that opens downwards. So going down like this. Then the parabola, the vertex is the maximum and the leading coefficient is negative. So when this A is a negative number, we know we are going downwards. And then the maximum, we will get a maximum point in this case. And then we talk about stretching and shrinking based on the A. So if you have this A, same thing as this A, okay? So if this A is if your A is between, is greater than 1, absolute is greater than 1, like 2, 3, 4, 5, you get a narrower graph. When this A is between 0 and 1, you get a smaller graph, a wider graph, sorry. So what happens is your x squared is depends. So if you have an x squared, your x squared looks something like this, a normal parabola. What happens when you got a 2x squared, your graph becomes narrower. 3x squared even narrower, 4, 5, 6 even narrower. So in this case, the A in front makes the graph narrow if your A is greater than 1. But what happens if it's less than 1, like 0.9? 0.9, this is 1, 0.9 will get wider, 0.8, 0.7, 0.6. So your parabola is getting wider based on the smaller, if your A is getting smaller and smaller. So this is where your A is positive. And what happens when your A is negative? You just go downwards. So what happens when your A is a -2? -2 means it's go downward, getting smaller. -3 getting smaller, getting smaller. -4, -5, back to -1. So what happens when you have a -0.9? It's getting wider. For -0.8, -0.7. So it's getting wider when you get negative. So this is what you do with a negative sign. Okay. Next, so this is called the quadratic function of a standard form. The reason why we call this as a standard form is because if you write this quadratic in a standard form, you can tell the vertex. The vertex is HK, which is, again, kind of something like a circle that I just mentioned. But watch carefully here with the formula, because the circle, both of the H and K are negative, right, or minus sign. But for this quadratic function in the standard form, your H is a negative, your K is a positive. So be careful with this. This is negative on your H and a positive on your K in this case. So be careful with that. And when you do the axis of symmetry, your axis of symmetry in this case is X over H. Okay, so a lot of students, the H come from your vertex point. So a lot of students give me just like an H point. Example is this example. So let's say this is the minimum, and this minimum point is that 4, 2, the coordinates 4, 2. So when you give me the axis of symmetry, a lot of students just give me 4. That's the H, that's the vertex, that's the H. If you give me 4 in your test, you won't get full points because an axis of symmetry is a line. So you have to give me X equals to 4. So if you give me 4 by itself, you will mark you wrong. Okay, and the A in front has the same concept as the A we just did on the previously. So if your A is positive, it goes upward. If your A is negative, it goes downward. If your A is greater than 1, it's a narrow graph, narrow parabola. If your A is less than between 0 and 1, it's a wider parabola. So the A in front here has the same thing as the A here. Okay, so usually in the question, they give you this quadratic function. So the question is, how do you translate this quadratic function back to this standard form? So again, like circle that we just did just now, In order for us to do this, you have to do completing the square. So remember the steps that we just did on this example, completing the squares. So try to change here to that. This is the same thing. But the good news here on the quadratic is you don't have the y term. You only have the x term by itself. So you only need to do one time. Okay. So so this so you have to take the half, the same step we just talked about. X-intercepts. So when you do the x-intercepts, you have to find the zeros. So you set the function equals to 0 and try to solve it. There are two ways for you to solve for x, either using factoring or using quadratic formula. Sometimes a parabola may not have an x-intercept. How do you know you don't have an x-intercept? Is you take the square root, your quadratic formula. When you do the square root of b squared minus 4ac, if that number came out negative, which is complex, a lot of you know that. So if you came out, your b squared minus 4ac came out to be negative, then you get yourself what we call as a complex, and then you have no x-intercept. Okay, so you don't have x-intercept in this case. Now, some students use the quadratic formula. When you do the b squared minus 4ac with a square root, you have to actually write your answer in square root form. That means you cannot use your calculator and do, oh, square root of 2 is 1.4, and then you cannot do that. You have to leave it as a square form. For example, when you put this in your quadratic formula, it came out to be -4 plus 8 square root of 3 all over 4. Let's say this is what happens when you put in your quadratic formula, you get this kind of question answer. This is something I want to point out to you here is some students just, oh, the 4 and 4 will cancel. So what I get here is -1 plus 8 square root of 3. That is wrong. There's a plus minus, sorry. There should be plus minus here. Plus minus here. If you do this, if you just cancel your 4 and 4, the 4 with a -4 and give me this is wrong. Okay, this is not correct. So how do we do this correctly is you take this over 4 and you do it twice. One on the first term and one on the back term. So the 4 is correct, and 4 over 4 is -1, but -8 over 4 is a -2 square root of 3. So this is the correct way to do it, is you take the over 4 and you do it twice. One for the non-square root and the other one with the square root. And on your online, I accept this as your answer in your test, but on your online homework, they don't like plus minus. They just do, you have to separate this in 2 answers, 1 plus and 1 minus. That's an example I'm going to point out to you here is right over here. 3.1 question 11. What's question 11? 3.1 question 11. This is someone asked me already in online homework here because they do. So this is the function they have here, x squared minus 6x plus 4. The question here is asking you to find the x-intercept. So in this case, how do we find the x-intercept? In this case is, this is 3.1 question 11. We need to set this equals to 0. This is finding the x-intercept. You have to find the x-intercept here. So you set this to 0, become x squared minus 6x plus 4. Unfortunately, you cannot factor this, so you have to use the quadratic formula. Does anyone here know what is the quadratic formula? Because this is something very, very important. Anyone know?
Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4.
4ac?
Yep, times it 4ac, all over.
All over, yes. Over what?
2a.
2a. Now when Elijah say all over, this line has to be all over, not partially. So so in this case, your a is 1, your b is, this is your a is 1, your b in this case is -6, and c is 4. So in this case, when you plug negative to a b to a negative 6 to a negative b, that become positive 6. And then you square this negative 6. So negative 6 times negative 6 is 36. Minus 4 times a is 1. 4 times 1 is, you can ignore it, times 4. 4 times 1 times 4. The 1 is can ignore. All over by 2 times 1, which is 2. So in this case, 4 times 4 is 16, right? And 36 minus 16 is 20. And this you have to reduce. So 20 can be reduced to become 4 times 5. Because 4 is a perfect square of 2. So this will give me 6 plus minus 2 square root of 5 over 2. But like last time I showed it to you, instead of moving everything over 2 here, what you do is you break this into 2 pieces. This is the correct way to do it. And then don't use your calculator. So 6 over 2 is 3, plus minus 2 over 2 can cancel, so you get root 5. So in this case, this is your answer here. And the question here wants you to write, they say the smaller value goes first. So which one is smaller, the plus or the minus? The minus is a smaller one, right? So that one has to go first. So this one you have to write 3 minus square root of 5. Don't forget, it's a coordinate system. You have to comma with 0. Because if you don't put this in the comma with 0, you got it wrong. And then this is 3 plus square root of 5, comma 0. So this is how you do this question. Same thing in my test. I do not want you to use your calculator and figure out what is 3 minus root 5 in decimals. You won't get full points in your test. You guys with me here? So this is how we do 3.1 for this to find what we call as an x-intercept. Okay. Now, who here likes to do completing the square like the one we just did just now? Taking the middle term, half, and square. It's a lot of work, right? Remember what we did in here? This is a lot of work, right? These 4 steps, headaches, right? So do we have a shortcut to not do completing the squares? The answer is yes, we have a shortcut. The shortcut is using what we call as the vertex formula. This is the shortcut. So if you do not want to completing the squares, which is all the 4 steps that we just did just now, this is a shortcut. If you have this, your a and b is here. So the vertex is negative b over 2a, f of negative b over 2a. This is b and a is here. And then what is this is you just plug in the number you found in x to your here to find your y value. So this is a shortcut. So in the test, it's up to you. If I ask you to find vertex, you can find it using completing the square, or you can using the shortcut to find it. Doesn't matter with me because your answer is still going to be the same. And again, the a here has the same property. If it's greater than 0, it's a minimum. At negative b over a, the minimum value is negative b over f of the y value of it. And if a is less than 0, it's a maximum value. So let me show it to you what's happening in your homework, like this question. This question wants you to write in the standard form, the one that, so in order for you to write this question in the standard form, I'm gonna rewrite this. So if you want to write this in the standard form, what you do is there are 2 ways to do it. One way is doing what we call as completing the square. So how do you do completing the square? This is the hard way to do it, which is like, if you want to pick this way, be my guest. What you do is you take the plus 4, you move it over because you want the x term by itself. You move the 4 over. So when you move the 4 over, it becomes negative 4. Then you get equals to x squared minus 6x. This is your first step. Always the first step is to move the number, the last term, the number term to the other side. And then next step is if you have a leading coefficient is 1, you're good to go. If your leading coefficient is 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever number, then you have to divide by that number here, so that you want to make the leading coefficient as 1, which is we got it here. And then next, you take the middle term, -6, divided by 2, and then you square it, like what we just did in completing the squares. So this will give me 9. So what do I do with this 9 is I add it to both sides. I add 9 here, and I add 9 here. So what happened is that these 3 terms will factor. And when you factor, it's a perfect square trinomial. You become x minus 3 squared. And where this minus 3 come from? You take -6 divided by 2. And then over here, you do fx. And then the -4 plus 9, this will give me +5. And then the last step, you move the 5 to the other side, become -5. So this is your quadratic form in the standard form, which is a lot of work, okay? And don't forget, this is your vertex HK, okay? So there is also another way for you guys to do this, is doing what we call as doing the formula, the formula for vertex. So the vertex formula says -b over 2a, and then f of -b over 2a.
Told Sarah to look at you.
I'm sorry? Someone say something? So again, we will use a and b here. So we plug it over here. So -b in this case is -6 over 2. So in this case, that we know that your vertex is 3. This is your h. Okay. Now we need to find k. So in order for you to find k, you just plug this 3 into this formula. So is 3 squared, plug 3 into your x, like substituting. -6 times 3, this is getting worse, plus 4. So 3 squared give me 9. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 4. So if you take this, you will also get 3, -3. Because 9 times plus 4 is, is that right? 9, 3. Yep, 3 squared minus 6 times 3 is 18. 9 plus 4 is 13. Oh, this is 5. Oh, sorry, 5. Sorry, this is -5. Sorry, this is -5, my bad. So you notice that this is your h and this is your k. And if you look at your original one, see your h and your k. Don't forget, this h, you have to flip the sign. Why we have to flip the sign is because the formula says that -h, see the negative, you flip. This k, you don't flip the sign. So that's the reason why that when you look at this, you find out that it is, you don't flip the sign on here. So that's why your 3 is a -3 and your k in this case is a -5. So you can do it this way also. So there got 2 ways for you to do it in the test. Doesn't matter what way you pick. You can pick using the vertex formula, or you can pick using the completing the square. No matter which way you do, you still get the same thing. Okay. So example is like question number, what I did over here, number 1 and 2, I'm using what I call as the completing the square. So if you do not want to do completing the square, we can still use the vertex formula. For example, if you look at 2, we can find the using the vertex formula. This is your A, this is your B, and this is your, we don't need C. So the formula says that for H is gonna be -b over 2a. So this -3 3 over by 2 times -1 over 3. So this is your h here. So in this case, when you multiply this in, you will get -3 over by -2/3. And as you guys remember that when you change the division to become multiplication, you flip your fraction, so become 3 over -2. Okay, so in this case, when you multiply this, this will become 9 over 2. So you find out that your 9 over 2 came from here. This 9 over 2 that you have, this is the 9 over 2. You see the 9 over 2? Okay, so this is how you find your h. And then to find your k, you just plug 9 over 2 into your x. So you got -1/3 times 9 over 2 squared, and then plus 3 times 9 over 2, and then -6. So you have to use your calculator here to do this, and this will give you 3/4 if you use your calculator, which will be the same as him. So that's why your vertex in this case is 9 over 2 and 3/4. And where is this -1/3 comes from? This -1/3 comes from your a, which is right over here. So you can skip, look at this. This is what we call as computing the square, which is horrible. You do not want to play with this. So I will recommend you guys to do the vertex formula, find the vertex first, and then after that, plug it into here. Don't forget, when you do your vertex formula, once you find your vertex, this you have to do the opposite. This you have to do the opposite. The h, you have to do the opposite. So opposite means if it's a plus 9/2, become -9/2. But your k is the same thing as 3/4. Okay. And then once you finish this, and then you have to, then after that you find the x-intercept by putting x equals to 0, and then solve for x, and then after that you draw the graph in this case. So how do you draw the graph in your online homework is, if you have a graph, a multiple choice like that, you can do it your own. See everything that is not multiple choice. They are mostly multiple choice. Okay, so like this one, you do not need to really draw. This is easy because you can use what we call as transformation. This one means -6 means you got a parabola going down 6. So how do we draw this is you have this, put a parabola, and the first point you do is a -6, going down 6, and then you need another point. So how do you figure out another point in this case is very easy. You plug in another point you want. So for example, you plug x to become 1 here. So what happens is 1 squared minus 6, that will give me -5. So when x is 1, you get -5. So you just plug x is 1, -5. There you go. So 2 points and you are done. So this is how you graph a parabola if the question is not multiple choice. So you graph the vertex, and then after that you graph the parabola. Plug in an x and a number you want. I put 1 in here, and then find what is the y value, and then plug the next point, and then you get yourself a parabola in this case. You guys doing okay here so far with this? Next, what happens if I give you the vertex and the point? Can you write this in an equation? So what do we do here is we do it the backward style. So last time I give you the equation, I want you to give me the vertex. This time I give you the vertex, I want you to give you the equation. So first thing first, this is your h, this is your k. And don't forget your h is always opposite. So you got x plus 2 squared, and then k is -2. This a is what you need to find. And how do you find the a? You use this point. -1, 0. So once you got -1, 0, you find a with it. So you plug in your x and your y here, or your f of x. So what happened is that your y will become 0, your x become -1, and then you try to solve for a here. So this will give us 1. 1 squared is 1. So it's 0 equals to a minus 2. A is 2, and then you plug it back into this, and you get this function. So actually, given you this function is easy. Given your vertex finite function is easy. The only thing is they always include the point. This point is always to find a. So that's why you doesn't know a, but the vertex is always given to us. Okay. Mostly the rest you can read through here. So I would recommend you to look at 3.1 and read through my notes here. It's already found in D12. Next is 3.2. I'll do a little bit of 3.2 and then we'll continue this on Thursday. You have to, this one you actually have to, 3.2 is mostly a bit more, not too difficult. The next one is a bit more difficult in this case. So a leading coefficient test. What is a lead? This time we do polynomials. So before we do this polynomials, I want to take attendance. So go ahead and type in present. I'm taking attendance right now. So go ahead and type in present. So when we do, this is called a polynomial functions. So last time we do power 2, now we do power 3 and above. So how do we do a polynomial functions in this case is depends on your power. But when you graph a polynomial function, it has to be continuous. Continuous means that no breaks, no holes, or no gaps. So it's something like what we draw here. And then make sure that your turns are smooth. Your turning points are smooth, not zigzaggy like this. Okay. So when you draw a function, if you have an even function, you get yourself a parabola, which is like this. And when you get an odd functions, you get a cubic function. A cubic function will look something like this. This is a cubic function. What happens if you increase your power? Then you become flatter. So what do I mean by that? You become flatter. Okay. So let's say you have an x squared. We know this is a parabola. What happens if you want to draw x4? X to the 4 is also a parabola, but it's flatter down on the vertex. And what happens if you want to do x6? It's also a parabola, it's even flatter there. So this is what happens when you guys have a parabola with higher power, a polynomial with a higher power. What happens to x cubed? X cubed, we have like an hourglass. And then what happens when you increase it to x5, another odd functions? Then what happens is that it will become flatter on the 0, 0. And what happens when you have x to the 7? Then this will become even flatter. So what happens is the more higher the power, the odd or even, this will become flatter. This is the meaning of that. Okay, so that's the meaning of the flatter, what I mean here. And then next thing I want to point out to you here is the leading coefficient test. This leading coefficient test depends on two things: your leading coefficient and your xn. Okay, so if your leading coefficient is positive and your power is odd, then you get this, something like what we have here. So what is the leading coefficient test telling us is if you have a power 3 or power 5 or power 7 and your leading coefficient is a positive, you find out that the arrows that you see here, one goes up and one goes down, and it's always like that. Okay. What happens if you have odd like x squared? If their leading coefficients are positive, then you find out that both of these will go up. You see that? What happens? It becomes negative. So when you have a negative, then your graph will go the other way around. So when you have a negative, the left side will goes up, the right side will goes down. So when you have a negative, this will go up, this is go down. And what happens if you have these are negative? Use purple. So what happens are these are negative, then you will have open downwards. And when you open downwards means that these two are going down like this. Okay, both of them are falling. Okay. And then turning points, we can also figure out how many turning points based on your power. The turning points in this case is at most n minus 1. So if we have a 4 power, n is power 4, you get 3 turning points. Okay, so let me give you an example what happens when you have a really weird polynomial functions. So you got x negative x cubed plus 4x squared minus 9. Okay, how do you graph this kind of? I can tell you what it looks like. I can tell you that this negative and it's a power 3. So that means it looks something like this one. Means that it goes up over here and it goes down over here. I can tell you if you graph this. Why? Because odd function with a negative goes like that, positive go the other way. And then this 9 is your y-intercept. The constant term is always your y-intercept. So because it's a power 3, so it will have 2 turning points. So this graph will look something like this. So you got 1 turning point here and you got 1 turning point here. And it will cross at negative 9. So I can kind of tell you what the graph looks like once I look at the function. And this is what you guys need to know how to do. So make sure you guys know the turning points and everything. Okay. And then the last thing here before we go is to find the zeros. So there are a few ways for you to find the zeros. Zeros is also called solution. It's also called factor. It's also called x-intercept. So sometimes when you have a 0, 0 is you just take the equation, make it equal to 0. This is how we figure out. But all these names are the same. So if a question is asking you to find a 0 or find a solution, find the factors or find the x-intercept, you just put your function equals to 0. But the way that you write down is a little bit different. If I want you to find 0, you give me x equals to a. If I want you to factor, it becomes x minus a. If I give you x-intercept, you give me a equals a0, a coordinates point. What do I mean by this? Okay, this is something I will point out to you because you will. The reason why is because you have to read the question very carefully when you do your homework. Because if a question is asking you for this, you give me the wrong form, you get it wrong. So for example, is x squared minus 9. Okay, this is a function. This is an easy function. So what happens if I want you to find a 0 or a solution? So in order for you to find a 0 solution, you just put 0 equals to x squared minus 9, and then you try to solve it. So you move the 9 over, become 9, and then you take the square root of it, and every time you take the square root of it, you need to put plus and minus. So in this case, you got 2 answers, x equals to plus minus 3. So this is what I call as 0, and I call as a solution. But what happens if I want you to write a factor on this? So what you do with this 0 is you just put x minus 3 and x plus 3 because you got 1 negative, 1 positive. So this is the factor of how we write in factor form. And how do you write this in the x-intercept? Coordinates. So in this case, you do 3, 0 and negative 3, 0. So this is something I point out to you here is because depends on the question. Sometimes the question asks you for 0 or the solution. Sometimes it calls you to write as a factor. Sometimes it calls you to write as an x-intercept. So the way that you write your answer, you have to watch out for it. Okay. Now, the rest of this 3.2, you have to go through it yourself because I don't have time to go over it. So like repeated zeros. There are videos you can watch. I will post some videos on it. So watch these videos because these are very important videos. So I want you guys to go ahead and try finish up 3.1 and 3.2. Try to do 3.1 and 3.2 here. Please go through this because I don't have time to go over this. So when you come back, we'll do 3.3 and 3.4. So so make sure you guys go over this 3.1 and 3.2. If you have any questions, please email me. Very important stuff here. So I will post some videos. Make sure you watch those videos, especially with this section. You can also watch the videos on your textbook. So this is a quick one before I let you guys go here. If you go to your textbook, there are videos to watch. So go to your textbook. There are videos. I will post some links for you from YouTube and from Khan Academy. So let's say we're in chapter 3 right now and we're in 3.2. So 3.2. So like here we are doing the real zeros of polynomials. So this is the one, and then you will study, and then where was the little video? So there is an animation on here. So this is a text, your ebook. You can actually click on it and you can watch a video what they do. So I would recommend that you guys do this because they will, it's like, you know, read through it and play around with it. So like factoring, and then we'll tell you what's going on. And then, so this is very important. Okay, so I will recommend you guys to go ahead and finish up this 3.1 and 3.2 that I have over here. And then if you have any questions, please let me know, okay? Because you don't have time to go through this. All right, so anyone have any questions to me beside those forget present? Okay, if you don't have questions, you may go. If you do have questions, please stay back. This is a very fast class. We are 1/3 done already with the material. So by end of this week, it's half gone. So so make sure you guys, I'm gonna stop.